Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back, it's Jordan here. Today we're going to be modifying the lighthouse. So classically, I just took this lighthouse set, I changed up the plate details. So we did like Mills plate it, no, not really Mills plate it, but we removed it from its original dark blue base plate, which was so cool. But then we did all our underlying plate and added the tiles on top to merge it into the water. And it actually used to sit right over here where we have the custom built ferry. So it used to sit right there, but now I think the better place for it is actually right over here on the island. But it's at a risk here. Like I'm gonna bump into it, I'm gonna knock it off, and it's disconnected from the land. So I wanna try and modify this set so that it's connected to the land, but keep some of those awesome play features, such as the little concrete staircase built into the rocks, and also the little cave right over here. This is what the corner looks like with no Lego. So there's two plates, an interesting shaped one, and also the corner, which was the lighthouse. And this wood platform here was actually notched, and then everything was Lego built. You can see what I mean by interesting shape. It's like two base plates, and then one there, and then another two base plates. And then of course, this is all just supported inside with a 16 by 16 Technic panel, and also some of those 1x2x5 pillars, and then all the plate on top. But I got to rebuild all of this, pretty much destroy it, and then come up with a new corner that's going to accommodate this lighthouse. And once again, just keep those awesome features that the lighthouse has intact. But yeah, it's going to involve pretty much decimating the set, not the top part, like the building and the actual lighthouse, but the entire base. Well folks, when I say decimate the base, I mean essentially decimate the entire set, because the electronics were running through it. It was all held in place by Technic, so it did not come apart easily. But now I've just got to rebuild the lighthouse with its electrical components built in place, and then hopefully just build our base around it. But it's going to be quite the process. I've got a lot of cleaning up to do here, and just a lot of like rebuilding. It's going to be an interesting modification, because it's not as easy as just modifying the set, because you got to make sure the electrical components all line up as well. I pieced the lighthouse back together. In order to do that, I had to remove this whole side panel here. That exposes the series of Technic axles that run down into the base where we have the power function. So I've just got to make sure I get that reconnected properly to the gear up here so it can actually rotate. I had to do the same thing on this side here because the power functions were coming down and they had to be disconnected. That's why there was such a big mess there. But now I've rebuilt all that, so I just need to plug these back into the little building and also into the power mechanism within the base. So this is actually going to be centered on 4 base plates, so everything had to be transferred over. The first thing I did was create a 32 by 32 stud blue top, just using blue plate on top of the blue base plates, and that represents the base plate that we started building this on. And I was just using the instructions and following along. However, I'm only making the rock detail on this side and on this side here. On the opposite side is where we have our battery pack, and on this side here is going to be part of the island now. So what I'm going to do is actually build the island like this, but it's going to connect here. So I don't need to add the same details over here, so I can just use some colorful pieces to build up a structure that's what the structure is supported, and I can do the same thing on this side here. This build here is actually quite technical because of course you have the lights and the motor, and I wanted to make sure that I get everything spaced out correctly, specifically aligning the axle and just making sure that that actually connects to the lighthouse, and making sure the spacing between the structure, like the house, is actually connected to the tower. So for that reason, I decided it would be easiest just to refer to the instructions, because they've got all that math figured out. This is at like an angle, so to try and do it on my own, it's like, you know, we could do that, or we could try and keep this as original as possible, but integrate it into our land. Now, in order to install these cables here, I'm gonna have to do a little bit of surgery for when it becomes time to actually install the tower, because the cables have to run through there. Typically the cables would be hanging out right there, but I don't feel like destroying the tower to have the cables hanging out and then rebuild it. So the next thing I need to do is actually reinstall that tower. This should be fairly easy to extract so that we can actually plug in the cable to the motor. Or actually more so battery box, because this is the battery box and that's of course what's going to power the light functions, but this should very easily come apart. Seeing how it comes apart now makes me realize that I didn't have to do as much deconstruction as I originally did, but hindsight 2020, right? So if I just extract this plate like so, a few things will come with it. Well, now I can get in there, I can run the cables down, plug it in, have Jose hold the tower up while I put these plates back on, and then just sort of install it. But yeah, this is ready to go. While I was working on reconstructing this here, Mrs. Bricksie started working on some of the deep water detail. That was a little bit more tricky than anticipated, just because there's not a whole lot of slack on the main cable going down into the battery box. So just sort of held it up, fed that down, plugged it in, and then reinstalled some of the tiles there, fixed up some of the base construction for the lighthouse, like on this side here, made sure that the axle connected. And now when I flick the switch, which is in the cave here, everything should work. Where's the switch? Oh no, I forgot to install the switch. Just kidding. There it is. So you can see our power functions coming down on this side. And look at this, the exposed axle doing its thing. Pretty cool. I love this set. It's fantastic. Our top priority was just getting this lighthouse put back together and installed in the position that we wanted on these 4 plates. And now we can go through here and start removing all of the exterior details, for example, on this panel. This panel provides some great support for the lighthouse. So I'm not going to remove it all together, but now we can remove all the detail and we can start bolstering this up a little bit so it's more so like this island or this lighthouse is built onto the island. And these 4 plates are going to stay modular. And then this one here is going to be individual, just so that this is going to be easy to move, because it's going to be pretty heavy in the center and all of this is going to be built up here. But now I just need to work on rebuilding all of this rock work going up to the lighthouse on this plate here. There's also another plate over there where Mrs. Bricksie is, so you're going to have to build up all the way there. And this is facing outward. I do realize that that is a bit strange. Normally this would be facing toward land, but I think it's going to look better when we're looking at the lighthouse from this perspective. Because for the most part, when we're looking at the island, we're looking down at it from here. And I think having that structure facing this way is just going to look better in the end. But with that said, I'm going to have to go through and bolster up a bunch of this rock work here. That's why I have this coming out so far, so that we can have a walkway, or a rockway, that's what we'll call it, leading to the entrance of the lighthouse to the island land over here. So yeah, just got to try and modify all this here. And look at that water. It's coming along nicely. Maybe we'll tile off this section as well, just so we can truly visualize what it's going to look like. Because there's been some people that saying, hey, there's too much black. It looks like a oil spill in the water. And I get it. It totally does look like an oil spill in the water. You got this beautiful beach, and then there's just a big oil spill. But once we actually put the tiles on top, that black becomes blue, and it looks just like this here. So the black will look a lot better once we actually get the tile top installed. You can see the difference. Black, and then the translite blue. So the oil spill becomes deep water pretty quickly. So quick note, yesterday I made a video and it was discussing a movie, and we went to Fantastic Four. Fantastic movie, love that movie. Also, Mrs. Bricksie and I, we took a 2.5-hour break today. So the last clip that you saw was the last thing that we did. And then we went to a movie, went and saw Superman. I thought Superman was all right, but nowhere near as good as Fantastic Four. It's just my opinion. I think the cinema in Fantastic Four dominates Superman. Just my opinion once again. I think it was a better story, and better produced. And I don't think Superman was nearly as good as Man of Steel. I think Man of Steel was much better. But once again, just my opinion. So after that, we came back to the studio. Well, I did, and Mrs. Bricksie went home for the day. And I sort of took off where we left off, and it is looking pretty sweet. This was that like barren panel there, so I actually brought it out quite a bit just using bricks and then built it up with slopes. And I used some inverted slopes to bring this out further away from the structure. And then I was able to replicate the handrail from the stairs on the original set here. So it's like an angle and then this way, and this is going to be the walkway to the building. So I think that really works out. I'm not done the rock detail yet. I want to mess around with more colors. That's just like vegetation and G slopes and all that different type of stuff. So the rock work is not done. It's looking pretty, you know, sloped up right now, but definitely we can improve that. So just make note of that. I love the way that they were using the snot technique to mount these slopes and curved slopes on their sides. So I started doing a lot of that. Well, not a lot of it at this point, but some of that, just experimenting on the side here with some studs not on top bricks or modified bricks with the forward facing studs. Once again, the rock work over here, not done yet. You can see like this is looking pretty barren, pretty flat there. So I want to build this up more, but we did get the water built all the way up to the rocks. I think this is in like sort of a deep-ish water, not the deepest water, because the deepest water is black. But maybe I can make some notes of dark azure in there just to indicate a little bit of shallows, but I like that. And once we get the trans light blue tiles on top, I think it's going to look good. I'm going to save the tile top for later because something we don't have enough of right now, unfortunately, is the 2x2 trans clear slopes to create the wave details. But I do want to create a lot of waves coming into this area. So I think I'm going to wait for those to arrive because I think we ordered 500 of those in our recent order that we placed. And I may as well wait to do the trans light blue water wait until we have those parts as well so that we can do them both at once. Also, we ordered enough of the light blue tiles to do the entire island. So that whole project is sort of put on pause, like the final layer of detail until those parts arrive, and we can expect to see those within a couple months. So this is all just built up. You can see this is 16 by 16 panels. Nothing too crazy right now, no additional detail, but this structure is here, so we can remove this quite easily. It's just 16 by 16s. It's like a Mills plate technique. And the battery box, not really that easy to access. I would just have to deconstruct some of this. Well, I guess it is fairly easy. It would take me a couple minutes to get in there at this point, just to access the battery box. It's not quite as accessible as it was originally, like with the original set design, but it is what it is. I think that's okay. And this is just built up to represent rocks for now. And I can't wait to move on to the detail phase of it, but it's looking pretty sweet. And now that lighthouse that used to be like freestanding is actually built into a rockwork, which makes a lot of sense. And of course, we still have that cave detail. And once again, glad to see the lighthouse is still functional. That means the axle is still aligned, which is good. I'm actually glad that we came in here because I just noted that these are down a plate. So I need to add one plate under there. But I just bridged across with these large 1x dark gray bricks, knowing that if I need to replace those batteries, it's easy just to pop those out. So that's sort of by design. And same with these 4x6 plates going across the top there. This is so easy just to pop those out. So I'll make sure when I detail this, I don't go too crazy with overlapping things on the seams. And then of course we have the plates on either side. So plate number 1, water detail done. And you can see I actually added the layers of dark gray brick in front of the rock panels. So 2 or 3 studs in some cases there. So that's going to give us the studs to decorate it, similar to this one here. So that's good. And that's why I was confident just to bring the water detail right up to that. And that's why I was holding off in other areas. So that looks pretty good. And that should match up with this. But it looks like we're going to have to do a little bit of blending off the side of that. We can always just bolster that up and make it all work. But either way, there you go. That's good. That's sort of where it was before with a bit more detail because once again, we have those studs to work with. And then on this side over here, did the same thing. This one's a little bit different. See, it comes out a bit further there, but still has some brick built on the left, rock panel, corner rock panel, and another rock panel. And that should line up like so. And that is our funky shaped base plate transformed into a nice corner with the lighthouse integrated. And the water, yeah, the water takes it to a whole new world, doesn't it? I like that. Let's place it. I hope it fits. I haven't tested it yet. Yep, I think that works out perfectly, everybody. Slowly but surely, we're getting all the water detail done. Ah, it feels good. All we have to do is connect that section there, and then where the bridge is, wrap around that way toward the beach, and then after the Italian Riviera, wrap around that way toward that beach, and then all the underlying plate is done. Maybe that's what Mrs. Bricksie and I will do tomorrow. I'm glad I went with the decision of having the lighthouse face this way. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's awesome. And you can see it lines up. I built it to the right height, so that's excellent. Although, once again, this right angle here, not ideal. I could probably pop this plate out, put a green one there, put some wedge plates along here and taper in some of these angles so it transitions from the green to the dark gray less abruptly, and that has to happen all over the island. But yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there, one little section at a time. We probably would have got more done if we didn't go see Superman, but now I'm in a rush to go hang out with my kids because that's important. But I'm excited about checking out the lighthouse with the lights off because I don't do this very often. And why not, right? Let's see. I don't think that's going to do it justice. We've got to turn the other one off too. There we go. Look at that. Isn't that cool? I won't lie. It's been a while since we've done that. That is awesome. I love this set. It is incredible. We can open up that door there. See inside. That's amazing. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed this update. Made some good progress with the island. And stay tuned for more. Thank you so much for coming on by. Please remember to like, subscribe, and have yourselves a great day. Bye for now.